We're so glad that everyone's here today, and we really look forward to hearing from you. Um, Throughout the meeting, please feel free to use the chat box, raise your hand to unmute, or just unmute to give us feedback, questions, comments, share resources. We really want this to be informal and an opportunity for everyone to talk to each other. And I see a few more people are coming in. Okay. Here's our first district RESA team. We're the only RESA housing 2 different GLRS offices. We have both Southeast GLRS and Coastal GLRS. I'm Amanda Major. I'm the program specialist with Coastal GLRS. This is my first year in the position, and previously I was in Savannah Chatham for 14 years. My director is Miss Kim Bennett. She has been, I think, here with Coastal GLRS, I think, for 5 years. She was a program specialist and now she's the director, and she is in the meeting. So you will definitely hear her throughout. And then my program specialist counterpart is Shelly here. She's our host. Shelly, would you like to say hi?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I have started the recording, so this will also be emailed out and or posted on our websites. So if you need to share the content that we cover today, you'll have the ability to do so.
All right. And our contact information is at the end of the slideshow. So if you have questions or things that you would like to request from us or need any assistance, feel free to reach out to us. Please make note of the dates of our other Autism Consortium meetings. We'll have meeting number 2 on January 18th, and on April 19th, we'll have meeting number 3. The registration links are live, so when you get this presentation, you'll be able to go ahead and register if you plan to attend. So let's take a minute to check in. I was going to do it through the chat box, but it seems like our group might be a little bit smaller than I intended in the first place. So we can do it either way. I will call on you, and if you would like to unmute yourself, just share with us your position, your district, and then on a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being excellent, how are you feeling about being in training today? And if you're not at a 5, that's totally okay. I appreciate you being here. I know all of you have a lot on your plate. I know some of you are even on fall break. So if it's your preference to do it in the chat box, by all means. But my hope is that after this training, you have some new information, a new resource, or some new connections that are going to be helpful for you and helpful for your students moving forward. All right. Good morning. I see a couple people in the chat box. All right, Allie, would you like to go first? All right, it looks like a lot of people are doing it in the chat box, and that is totally okay. I just
Hi,
really
we're the Christinas.
Hi. And in the chat box here, we have Jeff Davis County, we've got Claxton Middle School, Cedarwood GNETs, we've got Savannah Chatham. I was really just excited to see where everyone is tuning in from since we have such a big region. I see Miss Ann Thompson from Long County, Bullock, lots of Bullock County people. That's exciting. Jenkins High School in Chatham. Bullock County, Candler County. All right, awesome. I see lots of fours and fives today, which is great. I'm really hoping that this meeting will be meaningful for you all. And if anybody at any time wants to chime in and share anything or ask questions, please feel free. We've got Effingham County here. Another Bullock County. It looks like we've also got a variety of positions, which is great. That means we've got people from lots of different backgrounds with lots of different information to share. All right. So here's our agenda for today. I'm going to open with some interesting statistics that will lead us to the rest of our topics. I have some resources from Georgia Department of Education that I'm going to share with you. Then I'm going to do just a brief discussion about some of the COVID-19 impacts. We are not going to dwell on it, but I did send out a survey in advance just to get some of you guys' feedback, some of your needs. So we're going to go over those results. And I really want to acknowledge some of the hard work and some of the gains that people have reported, and then also really just recognize some of the struggles. And I encourage you to please, chime in during those times and talk about your experiences, or at least fill out the needs assessment if you didn't, so that we can provide some support moving forward. After that, we have our guest speaker, which is Miss Stephanie Devine from Georgia Southern. She's here to share information about the Eagles Academy. And that will lead into our discussion about community-based instruction and community-based vocational instruction, which kind of started from that same survey. I'm going to share some of the ideas and feedback I got from teachers who did respond. And then I have a training of sorts on internet safety with some autism specific considerations, since students have just had so much more screen time lately. I have a book to give away. And then we're going to close with just an opportunity to talk, share resources, any book titles, websites you'd like to share with the group. And you can do this by unmuting. You can do it by entering them in the chat box, or you can send them to me later, because I've actually just created a slide in the presentation where I'm going to put all those resources in before I send it out, so that you guys will have the resources that are shared. So on the next two slides, you're going to find some of the statistics. And like I said, these lead into the topics for today. Take a few moments to just read and reflect on the demographic statistics for our state. You will note that 1 in 53 children have been identified as having autism, but only 67% of those have a documented medical diagnosis. So the rest usually will have that eligibility through school, but not necessarily that diagnosis. Boys are much more likely to be identified as having autism than girls are, and Hispanic students have a much lower likelihood of being diagnosed than other children in the state. The IQ data shows that many children on the autism spectrum have intellectual disabilities, but most don't. So this means that you're likely to be serving students with autism across educational settings. And in your check-in, that's kind of what I saw. We've got teachers who teach in a variety of settings here today. Here are a few more statistics. Take a minute or two to read and reflect, and some of these inspired our topics for today and will be discussed. But if you have anything to share, or and just any feedback about these, please do. So looking at these, we see that a very large majority of adults with autism are unemployed or underemployed. So we are going to talk about some transition supports. Nearly 2/3 of children with autism between the ages of 6 and 15 have been bullied. African American children are much more likely to be misdiagnosed as having a behavior disorder and then later diagnosed as having autism. And then the rates of sexual abuse for children with developmental disabilities are 2 times greater than typically developing children. And a lot of the characteristics of autism make our students especially vulnerable. All right. Quickly, I just want to share a few helpful resources with you from the Georgia Department of Education. All of these aren't autism specific, but they are things that will be helpful for you in your positions, and some of them are. If you haven't checked out the autism page on the Georgia Department of Education, you definitely should. It's linked here. I can also put the link in the chat box, but you'll just see lots of professional development resources, downloads, and just lots of resources for children at various ability levels and age levels. And there's lots of recordings of past trainings and webinars that have been available as well. So I just put that in the chat box, but you'll also get the slides with the links. Here, I'm also sharing the link to the Assistive Technology and Accessible Educational Materials webinar series. These are really fantastic resources, and although they're not autism specific, the topics are applicable to most of your students. The link, you'll find the dates, the times, the topics, and the registration links. And I encourage you to go there and save it to your Documents tab. I'm just going to click on it and show you. So the document looks like this, and let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. You'll see here that there's a assistive technology series. There's lots on AAC, on academic supports, transition specific supports that are available. There's also a whole webinar series for students with significant cognitive disabilities. I know we've got a lot of self-contained teachers in here, and so those are available to you. We also have a community of practice where that's really an opportunity to talk about a lot of things and just get new and updated information. The trainings on accessible educational materials are here. And then also there is a link to the Significant Cognitive Disabilities website that has the recordings of the previous trainings there. And then another resource I'm going to share with you is the professional learning and technical assistance related to transition. Similarly, these are not autism specific, but the trainings, the dates, the times, and topics, everything is available on one sheet, and you will get linked to it. And it also contains more information for students with significant cognitive disabilities. And just a side note, Elise James actually did a really fantastic training on CBI last week. And she said that that recording should be up soon on Godot's transition website. And a lot of the stuff she talked about is really specific to our students who have autism or developmental disabilities. All right. And finally, this is a link to the life skills resource page provided by Godot. These are mostly free resources, and the chart includes the target audience, the description, and the links. And I think a lot of the information could be helpful to you in your classrooms. Let's see if I can get it up. The document looks like this, and it just goes through subcategories of things like financial literacy, budgeting, life skills, college life, independent living skills, problem solving, social stories, and the links to the free resources are on the right. So you're also going to receive that. Okay. And our next agenda item is COVID-19 impacts. And again, my intention here is not to dwell on this. It's really just to have a quick conversation and maybe talk about some ongoing issues so that we have a better idea about how to support you guys. So I sent out a survey 2 weeks back and I posed these questions. What is going better for your students this year compared to last year? What problems or negative impacts continue in this current year? What new issues have risen this school year? And then what is your district doing to support students with autism during school closures and quarantines? I also asked questions about CBI, and that's going to, I put that with my training just so that we could lump that all together. But there's also a link to the survey here, which I'm going to put in the chat box so that if you didn't fill it out and you'd like to, it's available. But on the following slides, I've just compiled the responses and we're going to look at them together. And if you're having similar experiences or anything different, please feel free to share. So we're going to start on a high note. When asked what is going better this year, teachers reported more consistent face-to-face instruction, school feels more normal, fewer transitions help things run more smoothly, and better routines and schedules. Um, but if you're feeling this statement in purple, we hear you. I also got a lot of that. A lot of people said we're actually having a harder year than last year. Um, so here's a good time for you guys to respond. Do things feel like they're getting a little bit better? Or do you have any things that are better that aren't shared here?
Amanda, I'd really like to hear from people and find out why this year is feeling harder than last year. I would love some elaboration on that if anybody wants to share.
And my next slide has a little bit of that information, but I just really was curious because I did get that quite a bit. No one, quiet group. All right, well, I'm going to go to the next slide, which has some of the reasons that teachers shared. And how about if you also are experiencing these and you don't want to talk, you can just give us like a hand raise or something in the chat box. So when we asked about continuing COVID impacts, teachers reported there's been more quarantining of teachers, staff, and students. I think some of that is just because the social distancing element isn't there. So there's more people in your 6 foot area if you do test positive. Um, the students started the year off academically, behaviorally, and socially more behind than expected. Progress delays, lack of materials at home, and then more isolation. Um, One teacher reported that they eat lunch in the classroom every day now instead of the cafeteria. And when it's a self-contained classroom, that makes the class feel pretty isolated. And then also, no longer having recess with their peer groups. So these are some of the things that have continued when they were expecting a more normal year. And I do see some hands raised that you had similar experiences. Um, in the chat box, we have the hectic pace for teachers is very stressful. Part of this is due to lack of staff, paras, and teacher vacancies negatively impact the school flow and instruction for students. Yeah, I know staff shortages has been a big problem.
Christina, did you also want to speak, or are you just raising a hand in agreement?
Raising my hand in agreement. But I mean, I would agree with all of those. I believe this year has been way harder though than last year. Trying to teach virtually to children on the spectrum, especially the population that I serve, um, is very taxing. Um, you have to prep so much to send home so that they can have it at home when you say, get this or get that. They also have to have a very dedicated learning support coach in order to be successful at home. Um, and so all of those things. But I also noticed um, the one of the things that you mentioned is the isolation of our children, where we had come so far in inclusion, we've gone backwards. And some of it is due to COVID, and some of it is due to we've gotten comfortable with the lifestyle of COVID. So that's just my opinion, but I believe we got to get back to some normalcy, and it can't hinder the inclusion of our children. So
I've heard some very similar reports from other teachers just in my previous district I talked to. They said, even when the attempt for normalcy is there and we're able to go, there's some new behaviors that they didn't have before because the kids have just gotten comfortable not having to transition so much. They've gotten comfortable eating during the time they're used to eating at home, wearing the clothes that they're used to wearing at home. So they're just kind of struggling with getting back to normal. Sorry, as good as that is for them, ultimately, it's been a struggle and maybe an unexpected struggle.
yeah, that's a great point, Miss Amanda. I would agree with that. Of you know, I remember when I first took the position to do an autism class. It was just January, so it was the flip side of the major part of the pandemic. And I was thinking, my side of it was because I had never taught in a self-contained autism program. I was like, wow, this has got to affect the kids so much. But then when I got in there, I realized they were very comfortable with being in a bubble. Like they liked it. So getting them out of the bubble was the hard part again. So I agree with that.
Mhm. Amanda, do you have something to share, or are you raising your hand in solidarity?
I found that I mean I agree with y'all. That I mean I've got one of my students that has been out for the entire time. I mean, was out for the entire time until this year. Now that which all of my children are, they're severe, but they all have autism. So he's been out for the entire time since COVID started, and now he's come back this year. So that really has thrown him for a loop because he has been used to doing what he wanted to do at home. And so he's definitely not accustomed to being in the classroom, and he's throwing my whole classroom for a loop.
Yeah,
So that's really been difficult this year.
for sure. I think that as much as we can throw out proactively with social stories and things like that, we really don't know what we are going to be experiencing till they step through the door. And we've had a lot of new students actually who started school during COVID. So this is really the first time we've met them in person, even though they might have actually been in our schools for a year or two. Um, so- and then it's not my last question, but it's the last one like this, was talking about new issues, maybe that we didn't have before, that just have come up just specifically this year. And that lends itself to what you were saying, the increase in behavioral difficulties. Some students that we'd made a lot of gains with have really taken some steps backwards. Lots of transportation issues throughout the districts. I don't know if all of your districts have had it, but we've had a lot of busing issues, which causes the mornings and afternoons to be more rocky. It causes limitations on field trips and community-based instruction. Now we're kind of seeing that learning loss. We knew it was coming, but now that they're there every day, we can see that that is a problem. And then the expectation of normalcy, despite it not being normal. is something that several teachers reported. Like, everyone kind of was on board with school being normal this year, and it can't be if we don't have all our staff in place. It can't be if we don't have all the buses in place, or if people are still being quarantined. So that expectation in itself is a new issue that I think a lot of people have struggled with. Right, and this is the last one. So it's just, what is your district doing to support students with autism during school closures and quarantines? And teachers reported that they're still using the distance learning plans. They're still using their Google Classroom or whatever their district's learning management system is. Some districts are allowing the self-contained students to attend every day, even when they're hybrid. And then sending home work boxes and bagged activities, extra like hands-on materials and paper packets. So again, the purpose here wasn't to dwell on the negative. It's just really to let you know that you're not alone. We've got, I think, almost 15 districts represented here today, and it seems like a lot of these things are happening everywhere. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all for everything you're doing. We appreciate you. Your students and the families appreciate you, and none of this could be done without you. We know that this is a struggle. We have something else in the chat box. It says, professional adults are struggling to cope with the new normal and need to be encouraged to have self-care opportunities. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And now I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Stephanie Devine with Georgia Southern. Welcome, Stephanie, and thanks so much for giving us your time today. I am going to share your slides unless you would like to just do it. I have them ready to share.
You go ahead. You go ahead. That way
Okay.
we don't run into any technical difficulties, or hopefully, anyways. Hi, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity, Amanda, to come and share about Eagle Academy. Shelly is actually very knowledgeable. She was the one that got Eagle Academy started. So, yep. Woohoo. Yay, Shelly. My name is Stephanie Devine. I'm an assistant professor of special education here at Georgia Southern. My background is actually, I was from Las Vegas, moved to Georgia about 4 years ago. Big change there, but I taught high school, moderate ID and autism. And then I was a special education facilitator there for a while. And then I taught in a 18 to 21 age range transition group for students with intellectual disabilities and autism. So when I came to Georgia Southern and we had the Eagle Academy program here, I was super excited because these are the students I've been passionate about for a long time, wanting to help promote their inclusion into the community, into schooling, into competitive integrated employment. Those are kind of my primary areas of focus. So my relationship as executive director with Eagle Academy has been a really exciting one for me. Amanda, you can go ahead and change the slide so I can talk about what Eagle Academy actually is. And you'll see that we have the term inclusive post-secondary education on there. And that shortens to an acronym called IPSE. You'll see that around when you're working in this field. But basically, our program is designed to help young adults, or inclusive post-secondary education programs in general, are designed to help young adults with intellectual and or developmental disabilities make a successful transition to adult life by providing them an inclusive college experience. At Eagle Academy, we currently have a 2-year certificate program. We're working on adding another 2 years. So some students, if they want, could have a full 4-year program experience. So similar to a typical college experience in general. But throughout this our program does operate a little differently than your typical college experience. So we focus on academic skills, but we also focus on independent living and career vocational skill development. And basically the idea is we want to empower our students to achieve equal access to gainful employment. You'll see that's how our acronym EAGLE came to be. And go ahead to the next slide, Amanda. Eagle Academy is also a certified transition program, or CTP. That means we went through the process through not only our university system, but through the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education, to certify that we provide a rigorous program and that our students do have access to financial aid in the form of Pell Grants and sometimes work study. I see the question in the chat. And what kind of diploma do they need to participate in Eagle Academy? Our program serves students who could not get into college via the typical route. So as long as they've gone through college and received whatever type of diploma that the student receives, what qualifies them for Eagle Academy is essentially an eligibility category of intellectual disability and or developmental disability. Autism falls under that, but we also, there needs to be some evidence of like reduced cognitive functioning and challenges with adaptive functioning. Basically, what we don't want to do, because we don't offer like a bachelor's degree, we don't want to take that opportunity away from other students who could get into college via a typical route. So we are a program that serves individuals that can't access college otherwise, but this way they can come to college, have a college experience, take college classes with our support, and that's either they can audit them if they're really too difficult, or a lot of our students actually take them for credit and pass, because we focus more on those intro level courses, and with the supports that we provide, they most of the time our students actually pass those classes for credit. And so they come in as non-degree seeking students. And I'm kind of getting ahead of myself in some of these. You can go ahead and switch to the next slide. I just wanted to point out there are 308 colleges and universities across the country that have programs like this, IPSE programs. This is kind of that map from thinkcollege.net. If you're familiar with thinkcollege.net, that's like the big resource for all things IPSE. We currently have 9 programs in Georgia. That's at Georgia Tech, Kennesaw, Columbus State, East Georgia State College, Georgia Southern, of course, Georgia State, Albany Technical College, the University of Georgia, and then Georgia College and State is developing a program. They haven't, yes, that number's grown a lot, Shelley. But basically, we want to point out that we have over 700 students a year on average leaving Georgia schools that would qualify for a program like this. We still only have 9. We currently only have 6 students. So although we're trying to grow, we still can't serve. And not all students obviously necessarily want this kind of experience, but it is a great opportunity for a lot of students, especially those who really, really are motivated to have that college experience, to get a job in a competitive integrated setting, and to learn to live as independently as possible. Go ahead to the next slide. So I will definitely answer questions anytime you have them, but I'm going to kind of keep powering through. I don't want to take up too much time, but just the basic highlights of our program. Each program in Georgia is designed a little differently, and Eagle Academy focuses really on a very individualized program of study. Some programs have certain tracks you take, or kind of a major, if you will, but because Georgia Southern offers so many different degree programs, we really have a lot of flexibility with how we design the course of study for any individual student coming into our program itself. We do house students on the Georgia Southern Statesboro campus. And our students are Georgia Southern students. They pay tuition and fees, and they're able to therefore access everything any other Georgia student accesses. Events, student organizations, facilities. They live, at least that first year, they live on campus in one of our residence halls. And then throughout the program, we build on a variety of hands-on internship experiences and each semester it increases, so that at the end they're spending a bulk of their time actually working in an internship setting that's aligned with their future career interests. They take at least 50% of their coursework in what we would consider typical Georgia Southern classes. And then we do offer each semester a range from about 3 to 6 credits worth of Eagle Academy courses. And that will vary depending on the student's needs, support needs, because here's where we can work on improving those individual skills surrounding that self-determination and independent living, career development specifically too, beyond what's offered typical students. And then we also provide post-program transition planning. So especially as we hit COVID and so many of our students that graduated that year, they weren't able to be employed at that moment because we couldn't get anywhere, right? Everything was on lockdown the end of spring of 2019. So we continue to serve those students even after they graduated to make sure that we could help them connect with, employment opportunities or continued schooling. And so we continue to offer that for our students going forward. Go ahead and change it. As I mentioned, we have individual programs of study per student. You see our friend Brandon here and his STAR chart. We use the STAR person-centered planning process to develop short and long-term goals for each of our students, and that helps to figure out too what program of study they would take while at Georgia Southern. So we look at academic, independent living, career goals, community engagement. How do they want to be engaged in the community while they're at school? How do they want to be engaged in the community 5 to 10 years from now? And then self-determination goals as well. So we work closely with the different professors and program department chairs to figure out if a student has a certain interest, like let's say in kinesiology, we work with that program and we meet to talk about what courses would be the most relevant for our student based on his or her goals. And which professors would be the most conducive to this, right? Because as you all know, not every teacher is ready to have a student with a disability, an intellectual disability or autism within their class. So we're working on continuing to change that perspective here. And honestly, we've had so much great feedback from professors. I don't think we've ever had any real pushback. So they're very open. And in a variety of areas, our students have taken classes in child and family development, kinesiology, psychology, fine arts, career services, business, sociology, theater, biology, and logistics. So we're kind of all over the place, right? And we've just really had broadly really good experiences with our faculty here as well. But a big part of the program is the use of a variety of supports, especially our peer mentors. Now, peer mentors are great because they're a natural support. They reduce the stigma for our students being out in classes. So if our student maybe needs a peer mentor to go with them to a class, they can just look like a regular student in the class as opposed to a program staff person attending. So sometimes we'll have peer mentors, academic mentors do that. They'll go to classes, especially early on in the semester, and then sort of fade that support and or connect with another student in the actual class that could maybe provide a little bit of support as needed for our students. We also have social mentors to help bridge that social gap for that a lot of our students have challenges with, and make sure they're getting out and involved in the community, in the college community itself. So we encourage joining an organization of their choice. A lot of our students have been part of intramural sports or campus church organizations. One of our students is in a fraternity right now, and he's living off campus with some of his brothers, which is really awesome. And then, of course, attending the different sporting events that we have on campus. So, and then finally, we have peer coaches who work with students to set weekly goals or to continue to address those STAR goals that they've had along the way and just provide some individual coaching. And then, of course, we have program staff. We have GAs and then our program director, Dr. Pickens, who she provides the Eagle Academy course instruction, and then they develop any individual support needs for our students as we go. Then the next big area is career development, because one of our primary outcome goals is that our students have employment by the end of their time with us. And it may not be their final goal employment because they're only with us for 2 years, but that they're making progress on that way, along that way. So we connect strongly with our Georgia Southern Career Services Center because our students are students of Georgia Southern. They have full access to the Career Services Center and any connections they might have. That's where we run our internship placement through. So they do get course credit for those internship experiences. I've listed here some of the different internship opportunities our students have participated in over the last few years. And we had to get really creative during COVID when everything was shut down. So we had a lot of virtual internship experiences during that time. And that's actually opened some doors, I think, in everyone's mind and how to access different employment experiences and opportunities. So you'll see we really target areas that the student wants to eventually work in. If their interest is, wildlife, we've had a couple of different internship experiences at the Wildlife Center. Or we had one student who was particularly focused on graphic design. So that's what he did with One Borough. And he also worked with our Office of Leadership on just some soft skill areas as well. And go ahead to the next slide. Students in Eagle Academy have full access to the typical Georgia Southern student life, so they can develop those skills that they need. It's a great transition space for that, for any student, right? If you were able to live on campus as a college student, you might remember how much you grew over that time period, but it's a nice kind of in between, right? Where you're out of your parents' house and you're getting some of that experience, but you also have an RA or a resident director. There's rules still. There's this little bit of safety net there happening. So we have a great relationship with our housing office, and currently have our students housed with Eagle Educator Living Learning Community. So these are undergraduate students, like freshman or sophomore year, that are interested in becoming educators. So we thought that would be a good partnership to have our students live nearby and engage in activities with. That first year, they are required to live on campus. The second year, it's kind of a group decision based on the students' needs, interests, wants. Like I mentioned, our one of our students in his second year, he's living off campus with some fraternity brothers. But other students have remained on campus for both years. So it depends on the student and their needs. That's the down and dirty overview of Eagle Academy. There's certainly a lot more details. I'm happy to share more with those of you who are interested. Even if you teach young folks, what we're seeing is we want families to know that these opportunities are out there for the future. Because a lot of our students and their families were told at birth that their child was never going to be able to go to college, they were never going to be able to get a job. And that's not true, okay? But because of that, when they get to our phase, right, they haven't saved for college. They haven't planned or prepared for college. So those of you teaching young ones and working with young families, let them know that is an opportunity. And if they have the ability to start an ABLE account, they can start saving money without, risking any SSI or SSDI kind of issues there. But they could be saving for this opportunity because unfortunately, it is not free. You are paying for a college experience. Students can get a case with Voc Rehab and receive some support, but it's not a ton. So they are going to want to save money for this opportunity. But if you are interested, we would be happy to give you a tour, a small group or a school class or a set of teachers. We could do a regular tour, a virtual tour. We could even just chat with you about, more of the details. Oh, I see the question. I know the fees tuition is still the same, and it's actually more because we have to charge a program fee in order to run the program to provide the supports that we do. Are the scholarships funding also the same? So as I mentioned earlier, we are a certified transition program. That means we do have our students fill out a FAFSA. But the only thing they'll have access to is a Pell Grant. So that's financially based, financial need based. They don't have access to the same scholarships or student loans that other students do because they don't get a bachelor's degree at the end. So we do have some scholarship funding through the Georgia Council for Developmental Disabilities through a grant from them. We offer some every year. I'm continuing, part of my job is to continue to work on fundraising for Eagle Academy. We have a foundation fund that is used solely really as a scholarship space, because we do want this to be a program that's open to all students regardless of their economic setting. But that's something I'm still working on, trying to figure out how to add to. So we do have a link on our website. If you know folks who want to donate to a program like this, we'd be happy to put that in that scholarship fund. This is the website here, our main email account and the phone number for the office. And like I said, we'd be happy to set up a time for, to answer some individual questions, etc. We also have we recorded a virtual open house that's on our webpage. So if you want to share that with families as well. Go ahead, Christina.
All right, so one of the questions I do have is, are you looking for students to have a high school diploma or a GED?
They actually don't need either, right? They should have whatever high school, like they should have finished high school before they come to us.
Right.
And right now, so whatever that diploma looked like for the student, I know the state's switching to an alternate diploma as well. That will still be accepted by Eagle Academy.
Okay, super.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, Shelley, thank you. The donation page will take you to a College of Ed donation space, and you have to make sure you click on Eagle Academy. But if you go ahead to the next page, I just wanted to share a couple of additional resources. As I mentioned, we're certainly not the only program in the state or the country. So thinkcollege.net is a great place you could have, if families are interested. There's a lot of resources, like if parents go, well, I have no idea what to do, right? There's tons of resources for parents. As teachers, you could look at that to consider what types of transition planning you could be implementing to prepare students for this kind of experience, because they do need to be pretty independent in order to be successful in Eagle Academy. The other big thing is when they're in that high school age range to start working and setting up a case with Georgia Voc Rehab or GVRA, because they can potentially provide some supports for the program itself. Any other questions for now? Like I mentioned, we'd be happy to have individual discussions or do a little tour for you all. So thanks for listening. I appreciate it. And I hope to talk to all of you at some point.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm going to make sure that everyone who is attending today gets her slides, and she provided a handout as well. So I'm going to send that to everyone so you'll have the links that she talked about, and feel free to reach out to her. Also in this survey, I sent out a question about community-based instruction and community-based vocational instruction. And the responses I received led me to actually pose my question on a couple different message boards and just Facebook groups and things that I'm in. So I'm going to share some of those responses just so you guys have maybe some different ideas. And I really want to encourage you guys to share any ideas that you might be doing that I haven't mentioned. So I posed the question, and it just said, I'm preparing an Autism Consortium, and one of our topics of interest is CBI and CBVI during COVID-19. With safety protocols, staffing shortages, and transportation limitations, what are your districts doing to provide instruction on vocational and functional skills? And the first person who responded to me is actually a teacher in Savannah, Chatham. And she said that they've sourced furniture and household items from their garages and just in the community. And they actually set up a studio apartment in the classroom. And they're using it as their independent living lab. So they use the area to practice skills like sweeping and vacuuming, making beds, setting tables, cleaning surfaces. They've worked a lot on sanitizing and then cooking and doing dishes. And then outside, they actually have been rehabilitating the old greenhouse that before COVID, they were using it as storage. It's where all the old broken desks and chairs and everything were in the school. But they have 3 self-contained teachers in their building, and they just went to administration and asked for it. And so they've been working together to create a garden. She had students actually build the planter boxes, and then some of the other students who weren't able to participate in that have worked on watering and planting, opening the soil and different things like that. So she's really excited about the project, and she's hoping to actually have some fruits and vegetables and things so that they can use those in the kitchen. So here are a few of the other responses that I got. This was in the Council for Exceptional Children Forum. The first one said, "We're having the same issues at my school. We're watching and completing activities related to virtual field trips. We have a service learning project, Creative Connections, where we make greeting cards, art projects, and crafts for local community members." And this is what I thought was really cool. This year, they're using the faculty and staff in their schools as the focus of their community. They're organizing a coffee cart to fundraise for those projects. And then they have a transition room set up with basic activities, job readiness skills, work boxes, social activities, games, art supplies that are all really connected to transition in the community. And that's where they have a station for working on their greeting cards as well. They have the cafe decorated kind of like a Starbucks with posters and just, cafe inspired sayings on it. And then the teachers have worked in the cafeteria, custodial office, classrooms, library. So they're just getting jobs within the building since they're not able to leave campus right now. And then another teacher said that they created a micro business at the district office. So the students are still leaving their site to go to a vocational training site, and they're creating products that they can sell in the school's bookstores. And then another teacher responded. I also put this on Facebook in a teacher group, and it said, "We had a coffee cart and it's continued, but with COVID, we had to tighten the rules. The cart is run from the classroom rather than setting up in the hallway, and we use a Google form for ordering," which is another vocational skill the students can learn to actually read the Google forms and fill them out and fill orders based on the forms. And then they're delivering the items to the classrooms instead of setting up. And then another teacher said, instead of accessing the community, students utilize the work skills lab and practice job skills in the school cafeteria. Is there anything that any of you are doing or maybe would like to do that you've had restrictions about or just ideas to share? Okay. So virtual job shadow is an option for some students. So you may have students that are eligible for virtual job shadow, which is provided at no cost by Georgia Voc Rehab. I'm including the link with the information page and the contact information for Carla Wade, who is the kind of program director there. Your student does need to be at least on the wait list for GVR, but they can give you the information for that. And I'm actually going to show you guys just a really quick video.
Textbooks are a thing of the past. We have 80 teachers and 10,700 students in our district. The entire mission that we have is we're preparing these kids for a career. If the kids have a goal, they'll reach for a goal.
I had a general idea of what I wanted to do as a career, but with Virtual Job Shadow, you can actually take an interest test and it gives you a bunch of different career choices and options that you might not have considered before.
Kids always think they know what they want to do. Then they go and take the test, they realize there's other things that might be available to them in this big wide world of careers.
You can actually watch videos of people who do that profession for their job.
I have to keep them off sometimes. No, get your lesson done first.
Even if you know what you want to do, you can use it to solidify what you've picked, to prepare, and even apply for future jobs.
It's absolutely a wonderful site. The kids love it, the teachers love it, and Virtual Job Shadow is a piece that's well worth the dollars we spend because we have to be very judicious with our funds. It's become a no-brainer.
When I can stand behind a product like Virtual Job Shadow and say this is real, this is valid, and this does matter to your life, that just makes my day. I think all teachers should have it in their classrooms.
So like I said, there are some criteria students have to meet to be eligible for this resource, but it is provided by Georgia Voc Rehab at no cost. So the information is here if you are interested or you have students who might be interested. Feel free to reach out to Miss Carla Wade. All right. So this topic came to me when a document was shared through Virginia Commonwealth University Center on Transition and Innovations. Really, in today's technological world, the internet has become important and growing source for information and connectedness. But since COVID-19, it's also become an essential educational tool. So students with autism and their families face some unique challenges when attempting to safely navigate the web. And it's possible for students with autism to unintentionally break the law or jeopardize their safety. So taking a more proactive approach to promote internet safety can just help prevent some of these situations from occurring. Many factors have potential to make the internet a risky place for students with autism. These include disparities between their chronological age and their developmental age, poor or limited sex education, excessive time on the internet, isolation, and lures. Sometimes they spend a lot of time researching special interests, and that could unintentionally segue itself into accessing illegal websites or illegal pornography. And then lures like pop-up ads, misleading language on otherwise legal websites, message boards, things like that, can just lead the students to access material that is exploitative or illegal or dangerous. And then deficits in executive functioning and perspective taking make it difficult for them to grasp maybe which things are against the law, which things they shouldn't be accessing, and understanding the consequences that there may be for accessing them. Similarly, some of their special interests will lead them onto message boards or Discord chats, chat rooms, and things like that with other people who are age inappropriate. They may be much too young, depending on the interest of our students. You know, sometimes we have students whose interests are things that typically younger children would be interested in. And so when they're Googling it and they're going in the chat rooms, they may find themselves talking to children when they are no longer a child, and they may not understand, you know, some of the legal or touchy issues that could present from that. And then similarly, they could also end up talking to people who are much too old for them. If they have social deficits, if they're experiencing isolation, they just might be more vulnerable to predators online or scams and things like that. So I'm not immediately suggesting that we limit the students' access to technology because truly they need to learn to utilize it safely. Um, People with autism absolutely, though, will need more explicit and accessible instruction related to how to navigate the internet safely. So some topics that they may need to be taught more explicitly on are just legal versus illegal images and behaviors online. For example, they may need to understand that explicit images of children are against the law and they'll get you arrested. Exploitation. They need to know that they are at risk. They need to know how to prevent it. They need to understand that sometimes children or students have been hurt from being exploited online, talking to adult strangers, or doing things they shouldn't do. Social perceptions. So they need to understand maybe just because they see something online, it doesn't mean it's real. They need to know, who's an appropriate person to talk to about something maybe they didn't understand online, like going to their parents or going to a teacher about something that they saw, maybe that they have questions about or they just don't understand, versus talking about it openly, in a public setting. And then finally, just like all kids, they need to understand that the media skews body image and causes some unrealistic expectations about relationships and sex. As I was reading through this document that was shared, I thought a lot about that Netflix show Atypical. And it's not a real life show, but a lot of the situations that the family and the main character go through are things that are very realistic. And so one example off the top of my head is the young adult boy with autism ends up stalking his therapist. And he does it out of love for her because he understood like what relationships should be. And it's someone you trust and it's someone you can talk to. It's someone that you find attractive. And he did have all those things with his therapist, but he didn't understand that social dynamic of a therapist relationship versus a girlfriend. So those are just things that we have to teach a little more explicitly anyway. And the internet makes them just so much more vulnerable to situations sometimes that they might not have been in previously, especially because kids are in front of screens at school. Then they're in front of their screen at home. They just have a lot more time and a lot more time that's not monitored. So as teachers, depending on the age and the ability level of the students we teach, this instruction is going to look different, clearly. Um, it may be more appropriate to just share resources with parents and have them to have those conversations, or to talk to the parents and decide how you want to go about teaching some of these things. Some topics may be more crucial to certain students than others. It's just, I wanted you guys to kind of keep this in mind a little bit, because there have been some situations that have come up recently. So since our students spend so much time on the internet and don't necessarily always understand the dangers, these are just some things that you can talk to about with parents. All of them won't be necessary for all students, but some things that the parents just need to be aware of is know what the apps are that students are accessing, how to operate the devices. We often see that kids are much more savvy and utilizing the devices and the technology than their parents. It might be necessary to set up some internet safety filters or features. It just depends on the kid and it depends on what they're getting into. Um, this probably should be everywhere, though, setting up and posting some internet safety rules at school and at home so they know what is okay and is not okay to do. They may need to check the browser history, especially until they know that their student knows these rules and is following the rules. And then making sure students know what can get them arrested. Like, that is important. And then they may or may not need to know this, but if there is a risk, if they feel like their child might be vulnerable to this type of thing, they should probably know the accounts and the passwords to things like email and chats. So there are some really great lessons around social norms and safety on the internet in this book. It's called the ASD Independence Workbook, and it includes many other topics as well. And we at First District RESA have some copies to give away today. I've entered every registered person into the giveaway. And because of COVID and just the unexpected interruptions. I'm not going to take people off if they weren't able to attend as long as they registered, because a lot of people might have intended to come and then today they found out they don't have a sub or anything like that. So I'm about to put the wheel up, and if you don't see your name, if you can just raise your hand quickly, I can add names. I'm just not going to take any names off. So. All right, let's see if I can make it bigger. There we go. All right, so I'm going to give everyone a second just to make sure they see their name. If you are a registered participant. Is there anyone? No.
Amanda, will you
Yes.
add Stephanie Devine and Julie Mixon? I just did
Perfect.
attendance and I added them to our registration list.
I will. You said Mixon?
Yes, Mixon.
Okay.
Oh, and what about Christina Stott and Christina Grant, the two Christinas?
I have Stott on there. I remembered that,
Okay.
but let's check the other.
They're both on my registration list.
Okay, then they probably are. Let's see.
I don't see Grant though.
Nope, I will add it.
All right,
Wait.
anybody else we're missing?
That's why I kept the window right here.
I can't see that small. I know, that's why I have my glasses on.
All right, so we have 5 copies to give away. So I'm going to spin the wheel 5 times. I'm going to write your name down, and then I will send out an email to get your contact information so we know where to send it. All right, Lucy Worthington is first. Congratulations. Zola is second. Congratulations. All right. Bessie Sconyers. We have 2 more. Kendra. Got Kendra Sowell. And last but not least, good thing we added you, Julie Mixon. All right. And all the information for the book is in the slide. So if you did not win today, but you're interested in the book, you'll have the information, and it's not an expensive book. So again, I'll email you for your contact information so we know where to ship your copy. All right, and our last topic today is just a resource share. So this is a time, if you have any great websites or materials you use when working with students, especially related to any of these topics that we talked about today, you can let me know. You can unmute and share, you can put them in the chat box, and I am going to put them on the following slide, which right now just looks like this. And what I have included here is it's a presentation I put together a couple weeks ago, and it's apps to support transition for students with autism. And the slides just contain apps for helping with academics, social skills, executive functioning skills, and things like that. And it's pretty comprehensive, but if anyone has anything else that they'd like to share, I can put it in the slide. You can email it to me because I'm going to send this all out to you guys tomorrow. So I'm just going to mute myself and see if anyone has anything to share now. Okay, well, if you do think of anything, think of these consortia kind of as a community. So if we talk about things and you find something later, I may actually end up setting up like a Google Drive where we can put those things in. But for now, I'm going to add a couple of the things that I have, and I will include them there. So thanks so much for joining us today. Here's our contact information. If you have any questions or concerns, if you're interested in presenting at any of the upcoming meetings, let us know. And finally, you're going to receive an evaluation in your email, and we appreciate your feedback. So please take a few minutes to fill it out when you get it, and you'll receive a certificate of completion for your records. All right, so have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you guys for joining us.